The sun was beginning to set, casting an orange glow across the sky. The streets below were busy, people rushing home after a long day. Yet no one seemed to notice the young woman standing alone on the bridge. The sound of cars rushing by, the honking of horns, and the distant chatter of people walking along the sidewalk felt like they were miles away. It was as if the world had faded, leaving only her and the cold metal railing in front of her. She had been walking aimlessly for hours, letting her feet take her wherever they wished, her mind lost in a haze of confusion. The weight of the day, of the months and years that had piled on top of her, felt unbearable. She wasn't sure what had led her here, exactly why this bridge had become the place where she had stopped. But everything around her felt so heavy. Her name was Emma. She was just 25. But life had already felt like a battle she couldn't win. From the outside, she had everything anyone would want: a job, friends, and a small apartment in the city, but no one could see the pain she carried inside. On the outside, she smiled, made small talk, and pretended that everything was okay. But inside, she was drowning. It had started slowly. A few years ago, she had been full of hope, dreams, and plans. She had a steady job in a small marketing firm, and although the work wasn't always exciting, she was content. Then things started changing. Her relationship with Adam, the man she thought she would spend forever with, began to fall apart. What started as little arguments over things that didn't matter quickly turned into constant fights. Emma had always tried to fix things, always believed things could get better. But Adam grew distant, and soon, they were nothing more than two strangers who happened to share a house. The breakup came like a storm, unexpected and harsh. Adam moved out, and Emma was left to pick up the pieces. But life didn't stop. She threw herself into her work, hoping that keeping busy would distract her from the emptiness she felt. But it didn't. The loneliness was always there, lurking just beneath the surface. Even at work, surrounded by colleagues, she felt more isolated than ever. Her job, once a source of pride, became another burden. The tasks piled up. The deadlines grew tighter, and she started to feel like she was barely keeping her head above water. No matter how hard she worked, it never felt like enough. She found herself staying late, long after everyone had gone home, hoping that by staying busy, she could avoid the thoughts that kept creeping in. Thoughts of failure, of never being good enough. Her friends tried to help. They invited her out, sent her messages, but nothing seemed to ease the ache in her chest. She smiled when they asked how she was doing, but deep down, she knew they didn't understand. How could they? They all had their own lives, their own families, their own happiness. Emma, on the other hand, felt like she was sinking deeper into a pit that she couldn't escape. The loneliness became suffocating. She found herself crying late at night, after everyone had gone to bed, alone in her small apartment. The silence felt deafening. She tried to reach out to people, tried to find a way to fill the emptiness, but nothing worked. She started isolating herself more and more, thinking that maybe if she were invisible, if no one saw her, the pain wouldn't be so sharp. And now, here she was, standing on the bridge. It was almost dark, and the only sound was the wind rustling through the trees. The bridge was quiet, the traffic far below seeming distant, as if she was in a different world altogether. She had walked here without even realizing it, her feet moving, as if they had a mind of their own. The city lights twinkled in the distance, but they felt far away, like stars in the sky that she could never reach. She leaned against the cold metal railing, staring down at the dark water flowing beneath. It looked peaceful, almost calm. Emma's thoughts swirled, her mind a whirlwind of doubt and sadness. She thought about how different everything could have been, how things might have turned out if she had made different choices, if she hadn't let things slip through her fingers. She thought about how her life had become a series of mistakes, one after the other, until it all felt too much to carry. She closed her eyes, breathing in the cool evening air. For a brief moment, she felt the weight of everything lift, like she was no longer bound to the world. The thought of escaping everything, of no longer feeling the constant ache, the loneliness, the weight of expectations, was tempting. The bridge in front of her seemed like an answer, the final solution to a problem she couldn't solve. But as Emma stood there, the feeling of hopelessness clouding her thoughts, she couldn't help but wonder, was this really the answer? Was this the way to end the pain? She had no answer. Only a sense of numbness that seemed to surround her. She opened her eyes, looking out over the city. It was strange, but in that moment, everything felt small. The city, the people, her job, her past, all of it seemed so distant, like it was happening in another world. She had always been a dreamer, but now, it felt like her dreams had crumbled around her. She wasn't sure how to fix it, how to move forward. But the thought of staying in this never-ending cycle of pain seemed even harder. The noise of the world continued to hum in the background, but Emma felt removed from it. As she stood there, the cold metal of the bridge pressing against her, she couldn't see any way out of the darkness that had surrounded her. She thought about all the people she'd lost touch with, all the people who had once mattered to her. Her parents, her friends, Adam. They had all drifted away. And now, it felt like she was just a shadow in the world, a person no one would miss. For a long time, she didn't move. She simply stood there, staring at the water below, feeling the chill of the wind against her skin. The thoughts in her mind were relentless, crashing against each other. But then, just as the silence was starting to become unbearable, something unexpected happened. A voice, soft and clear, cut through the fog of her mind. "Are you okay?" Emma turned, startled, and saw a little girl standing at the edge of the bridge, looking up at her with wide, innocent eyes. The girl was holding a small teddy bear, her expression curious but not afraid. Emma blinked, not sure if she had heard the voice right. But there the girl was, standing on the same bridge, as if she had appeared out of nowhere. For a moment, Emma was speechless. The last thing she expected in this moment of despair was a child. But there she was, standing just a few feet away, watching her with a look of concern. "Why are you standing there all alone?" the little girl asked, her voice gentle, but full of innocence. "Don't you want to come play with me?" The words struck Emma like a wave. She didn't know why, but something in the child's voice, in the simple question, made her pause. It wasn't the question she had expected. It wasn't about why she was sad, or why she wanted to be alone. The girl wasn't asking to understand her pain. She was simply asking her to be with her. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't completely alone. Emma blinked, trying to clear the fog in her mind. She hadn't expected anyone to speak to her, especially not a little girl. For a moment, she stood frozen, her eyes still locked on the small figure standing a few feet away. The child was holding a teddy bear, a small, worn-out thing, and her big eyes were filled with curiosity. She wasn't scared. She wasn't even cautious. She was just there, looking at Emma as if she were waiting for something simple. "Why are you standing there all alone?" the little girl repeated, her voice soft and gentle, like a breeze on a warm summer day. "Don't you want to come play with me?" No. Emma wasn't sure how to respond. She couldn't even remember the last time someone had spoken to her like that. So openly, with no judgment, no questions about why she was sad or why she was alone. The girl's words weren't filled with pity or concern. They were simply an invitation to share a moment. A moment Emma didn't even know she needed. The silence between them stretched on for a few seconds. Emma's thoughts raced. Her mind had been consumed by a whirlwind of sadness just moments ago. Yet now there was this innocent little girl standing in front of her, as if her entire world had paused for just a moment. Emma looked down at the ground, not knowing what to say. What could she say to this child? To this little girl who looked at her with no fear, no sense of caution, just pure curiosity? The girl took a small step closer. Her teddy bear clutched tightly in her hands, and with a small, hopeful smile, she added, "I have a teddy bear, and he's a very good listener. You can talk to him if you want." Emma looked up at her, surprised. She hadn't expected this. She thought she might cry again, as she had been doing alone in her apartment. But now, she felt something else. A strange warmth was spreading through her chest. Something she hadn't felt in a long time. It was as if the little girl had just cracked open a door in Emma's heart that she didn't even realize had been closed. The little girl's eyes shone with innocence, not burdened by life's worries or the weight of responsibility. She was simply living in the moment, enjoying her time by the bridge, with no fear of what might be or could have been. Emma felt a pang in her heart. She had forgotten what it was like to be that free, to look at the world with wonder and curiosity. She had been so caught up in her own thoughts and problems that she had forgotten the simplest joys, the ones that made life worth living in the first place. For a brief moment, Emma thought about walking away. She didn't want to burden this child with her problems, her broken heart, and her confused thoughts. She had no idea why the little girl was here, or why she had chosen to speak to Emma. What could this child possibly understand? But something in Emma's gut told her to stay, to not walk away, to listen. "Why are you out here by yourself?" Emma finally asked, her voice softer than she expected. The little girl shrugged, her teddy bear still clutched close. "I like to walk by the water. I'm not scared of it. My mom says water can be pretty if you look at it the right way. And the sky is really nice when it's getting dark. Don't you think so?" she asked, her smile widening, showing the slightest gap between her front teeth. Emma could only nod. She had never really thought about the water that way. She had been so caught up in her own pain that she had never looked at the world around her, never really seen the simple beauty that could be found in moments like this. The little girl didn't wait for an answer. Instead, she took a seat on the cold stone of the bridge, patting the space next to her. "You can sit with me if you want," she said, her voice gentle. "You don't have to talk. We can just look at the water together." Emma hesitated. Part of her wanted to stay where she was, to keep her distance, to protect herself from feeling anything more than the numbness that had followed her for so long. But then, another part of her, maybe the part that had once been a dreamer, the part that had once felt like life could be beautiful again, wanted to sit down beside the girl and feel that warmth again. The warmth she had forgotten. With a deep breath, Emma stepped forward and sat down beside the girl. She wasn't sure what was happening, or why she was doing this, but for the first time in weeks, she didn't feel completely alone. The little girl smiled at her, her eyes shining like stars. Emma didn't speak. She just watched, as the water below moved with a quiet rhythm. The city was still there, far away, but it felt less important now. It was as if she had stepped outside of everything, outside of her own thoughts, and into something simpler, something purer. The girl beside her was at peace, content in the moment. Maybe, Emma thought, she could find that peace too. They sat there in silence for a while, the cool wind brushing past them, making Emma shiver slightly. The sounds of the city continued, but they seemed to fade into the background. All that mattered was the moment they were sharing, the little girl, her teddy bear, and Emma. No expectations, no judgments. Just two people, in the quiet, watching the world go by. After a while, Emma spoke. It was almost like the words came out on their own, without her thinking about it. "I don't know what to do anymore," she admitted quietly, her voice cracking just a little. "I don't feel like I can keep going. I don't know how to fix anything." The little girl looked at her, her eyes wide with innocence and understanding. "But you don't have to fix everything all at once," she said, her voice calm and steady. "You can take it one step at a time, And sometimes, it's okay not to know the answer. Emma felt something shift in her. She looked at the little girl, so small, so full of life, and yet she seemed to understand things that adults often forget. She didn't have any answers to Emma's problems, but she had offered her something more important, a glimpse of hope. The girl hugged her teddy bear tightly, then looked up at Emma. "My mom says tomorrow is always a new day. You can always try again tomorrow, even if today was hard." Emma smiled softly, her chest tight but lighter than it had been before. Tomorrow. It was such a simple word, but somehow, in that moment, it felt like a lifeline. Maybe tomorrow didn't have to be a repeat of today. Maybe tomorrow could be different. Maybe tomorrow, she could find a way out of this dark place she had been trapped in for so long. The little girl smiled again, not fully understanding the weight of what she had said, but knowing that she had somehow helped. She stood up, her teddy bear in hand, and waved at Emma. "Goodbye. I hope you have a good tomorrow." Emma watched her go, a small smile tugging at her lips. The weight in her chest wasn't gone, but it had shifted, and for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like she could take that next step, even if it was small, even if she didn't know where it would lead. She had hope now, the kind of hope that had been buried under the pain for so long. And for the first time in a while, it felt like it was enough to get her through. Emma sat quietly on the bridge for a few moments after the little girl had left. The breeze had picked up, and the sound of it rustling through the trees felt soothing against the silence that had been surrounding her. The city sounds continued in the distance, but now they felt like they belonged to a different world, far away from the one she was in right now. She hadn't realized how much she needed peace, how much she longed for just a few minutes of calm. It was strange, but in the moments after the girl had spoken to her, Emma felt something in her chest shift. The weight was still there, that heavy feeling of all the mistakes and regrets she carried. But now, it felt a little lighter. Her thoughts weren't spinning out of control. Instead, they were quiet, still. She could breathe again, just a little bit easier. The city had seemed so overwhelming just an hour ago, but now it felt small, almost manageable. She didn't know if it was the fresh air, the stillness of the moment, or the unexpected kindness of a child. But for the first time in weeks, Emma felt like she could think without drowning. The little girl's words echoed in Emma's mind. Tomorrow is always a new day. They weren't complicated words, but somehow, they felt like a lifeline. It was strange how something so simple could feel so comforting. For so long, Emma had been trapped in a cycle of thinking she needed to fix everything all at once, that she had to solve all her problems in a single moment. But what the girl had said, that tomorrow was a new day, made her realize that maybe she didn't have to fix everything right now. Maybe it was okay to just take one step at a time. She stood up from the edge of the bridge, her legs feeling a little unsteady beneath her. The thought of moving forward, of finding a way out of the dark place she had been in, seemed less daunting now. The girl had given her a small spark of hope, and that spark made all the difference. She wasn't sure what would happen tomorrow, but for the first time, Emma didn't feel like she was completely trapped. The possibility of tomorrow felt like something she could hold on to. Emma turned around and began to walk back toward the city. Her steps were slower than usual, more deliberate. The city lights flickered ahead of her, and the noise from the streets grew louder as she got closer. But it didn't feel overwhelming this time. She felt more grounded, more connected to the world around her. It was strange. Just an hour ago, she had been standing on the edge of that bridge, convinced that there was no way out. And now, here she was, walking back into the city with a small but growing sense of hope. As she walked, Emma's thoughts drifted back to the little girl. She couldn't help but wonder who she was and why she had come to the bridge that night. There had been something in the girl's eyes, something so pure, so untainted by the struggles and pains that seemed to define adulthood. The way she had spoken to Emma, without fear, without hesitation, It was as if the girl had known exactly what Emma needed to hear. She didn't ask any questions about why Emma had been standing there. Didn't try to fix her. She had simply offered her a moment of peace, a chance to see the world through her innocent eyes. That thought stayed with Emma for the rest of her walk. She had been so caught up in her own struggles, in her own sadness, that she had forgotten how to look at the world through fresh eyes. The little girl had reminded her of something she had lost: a sense of wonder, a sense of possibility. It wasn't that her problems had disappeared, but for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like maybe, just maybe, there was a way through them. As she reached her apartment building, Emma stopped for a moment. She stared up at the tall structure, the lights from the windows shining down on her. She had lived here for over 2 years. But tonight, it felt different. It felt like home again. Not just a place to sleep, but a place to begin again. For the first time in months, she felt like she could take control of her life. That she didn't have to wait for someone else to fix things for her. She could start with herself. She walked inside, heading straight for her small kitchen. The apartment was quiet, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. The stillness felt comforting. Emma took a deep breath, feeling a sense of calm wash over her. She wasn't sure what to do next, but that was okay. She didn't need to have all the answers right now. For once, she was willing to be patient with herself, to take things one step at a time. She made herself a cup of tea, sitting down at the small kitchen table. The warm steam rose from the mug, and Emma held it in her hands, letting the heat soothe her. As she sipped the tea, her thoughts turned to tomorrow. The idea that tomorrow could be a new day, a day with fresh opportunities, seemed possible now. She didn't have to make everything perfect today. She didn't have to have it all figured out. Tomorrow, she would try again. Tomorrow, she would start small. The clock on the wall ticked softly, marking the passing minutes. Emma sat there, lost in thought, her mind finally quiet for the first time in a long while. It wasn't that she had figured everything out, far from it. But she had been given a glimpse of something different, the simple kindness of a stranger. A little girl who didn't know her, but had offered her something far more valuable than any advice: hope. As the night grew darker, Emma finished her tea and stood up, ready to get some sleep. She didn't expect miracles. She didn't expect all her problems to disappear. But she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a sense of peace. A sense that there was still hope for her, even in the midst of everything she had been through. Maybe it wouldn't be easy. Maybe it would take time. But that was okay. She was ready to take it one day at a time. Before she went to bed, she looked out the window at the city lights twinkling in the distance. Tomorrow, she thought. Tomorrow was a new day. And for the first time in a long time, Emma felt like it was a day worth looking forward to. The next day, Emma woke up to the sound of birds outside her window, their cheerful chirping a stark contrast to the heavy thoughts that had kept her awake the night before. For the first time in what felt like ages, she didn't wake up with a crushing sense of dread. She had been so used to starting her days with a cloud of hopelessness hanging over her that she almost didn't know what to make of the peaceful quiet she felt now. It was a small change, but it was there. The weight that had been sitting on her chest seemed a little lighter, a little less suffocating. Emma stretched, blinking against the soft morning light filtering through the curtains. She took a deep breath, her body feeling slightly more awake than usual. She was still exhausted, but it was a different kind of exhaustion, one that felt less draining, like her mind was slowly coming back to life. Maybe it was because of the unexpected moment she had shared with the little girl the night before, or maybe it was just the realization that tomorrow didn't have to look like today. Either way, something had shifted inside her. She got out of bed and made her way to the small kitchen. The sound of the kettle boiling was oddly comforting. She hadn't felt like this in so long, like the small, everyday things mattered again. As she prepared her tea, she found herself thinking about the little girl and the brief conversation they had. Her words echoed in Emma's mind, simple and pure. Tomorrow, is always a new day. The thought repeated itself like a mantra, a small piece of hope that had lodged itself in Emma's heart. She remembered how the girl hadn't asked her about her problems or tried to fix anything. She hadn't judged Emma for feeling lost or confused. She had simply been present, offering her company and a chance to look at the world through a different lens. It was as if the girl had reminded Emma of something she had forgotten, that sometimes life didn't need to be fixed all at once. Sometimes it was enough just to keep going, step by step. Emma sipped her tea, the warm liquid comforting her. She wasn't sure what the future held or what she was supposed to do with her life, but for the first time, she felt like she could face it. That small moment, that fleeting encounter, had given her a glimpse of hope, something she hadn't believed in for a long time. It wasn't a grand solution or a quick fix, but it was a start, a reason to believe that things could get better, even if it took time. She knew she had a long road ahead of her. The sadness, the loneliness, the doubts, they didn't magically disappear overnight. But for the first time in a long time, Emma felt ready to face them, to confront them head on. She didn't have to have all the answers today. She didn't even have to have a plan. What mattered was that she wasn't running away anymore. She wasn't giving up. Later that afternoon, Emma went for a walk in the park, a habit she used to enjoy before life had become so overwhelming. She had almost forgotten how much she liked being outside, how much she had once enjoyed the simple act of walking through the trees and feeling the sunshine on her face. As she walked, she let her mind wander, thinking about the girl again. She wondered if she would ever see her again, and if so, what she would say. Emma had never been good at talking about her feelings. She had always kept them bottled up inside, afraid that if she shared them, people would think she was weak or incapable. But the little girl hadn't made her feel that way. She hadn't asked her to explain anything or fix her problems. She had just been there, offering kindness without any expectations. It was a refreshing thought. Emma realized that maybe she didn't need to explain everything. Maybe she didn't need to have it all figured out to take that first step forward. For the first time, she understood that it was okay to be uncertain, to not have all the answers. What mattered was showing up for herself, even when it was hard. As she walked, Emma's eyes fell on the small pond in the middle of the park. The surface of the water was calm, reflecting the trees and the sky in perfect symmetry. It was beautiful in its simplicity, just like the moment she had shared with the little girl. Emma smiled to herself, realizing that she had been so caught up in her own pain that she had forgotten to see the beauty in the small things, the things that didn't need to be fixed, just appreciated for what they were. She stopped by the edge of the pond, sitting down on a nearby bench. For a while, she simply watched the ducks swimming in the water, their ripples spreading out and disappearing into the stillness. She felt peaceful, for the first time in a long time, and it wasn't because everything in her life had suddenly fallen into place. It was because she had allowed herself to be present, to find solace in the small, quiet moments. Emma closed her eyes and took a deep breath, letting the calmness of the scene wash over her. Later that evening, Emma sat down at her small dining table, feeling a strange sense of calm. She had always been the type of person to overthink, to get lost in her own head. But today, she had been able to find a bit of peace. It wasn't a perfect day, but it was a start. She had taken a walk, allowed herself to breathe, and most importantly, she had decided to stop fighting the idea of hope. As she sat there, reflecting on the day, Emma realized that there was still a lot of work to be done. She had to address her feelings of loneliness, her broken relationship, and the job that no longer made her happy. But for the first time, she felt like she wasn't alone in the fight. That simple encounter with the little girl had reminded her that even the smallest acts of kindness could create a ripple effect in someone's life. It had reminded her that sometimes, the best thing you can do is just keep moving forward, one step at a time. The next morning, Emma woke up with the same sense of calm she had felt the day before. She wasn't expecting everything to be fixed overnight, but she was no longer consumed by the idea that everything had to be perfect. She didn't need to have all the answers today. She didn't need to know exactly how everything would unfold. What mattered was that she was willing to try, to move forward, and to be kind to herself along the way. As the days passed, Emma began to find new ways to care for herself. She started making time for the things that brought her peace, reading, walking in the park, and spending time with friends, even when it was hard. It wasn't always easy. There were still tough days, moments when the weight of her past would threaten to pull her down. But each time, she reminded herself of the simple truth the little girl had shared with her. Tomorrow was a new day, and that was enough. The morning light streamed through the curtains, casting a soft glow on the walls of Emma's small apartment. It was a typical Monday, but for the first time in weeks, Emma didn't dread it. She had spent the weekend taking small steps toward change, rediscovering the things she used to love, reconnecting with herself, and finding new ways to face her challenges. She wasn't pretending that everything was perfect, but for the first time, she felt like she had a sense of control over her life. The weight that had once hung over her like a storm cloud was still there, but it no longer felt like it defined her. She stretched her arms over her head and smiled as she stood up from her bed. Reflecting on the little girl's words and the simple kindness that had come from someone she had never met, someone who didn't know her struggles, made Emma realize something important. Life wasn't about fixing everything all at once. It wasn't about having all the answers or solving every problem in one go. It was about taking small steps forward, even when it seemed like the road ahead was unclear. Emma's phone buzzed on the nightstand, snapping her out of her thoughts. She reached over and picked it up, seeing a message from one of her old friends, Sarah. It had been a while since they'd caught up. Emma hadn't been very social lately, but the message made her smile. Sarah was inviting her to a small gathering with a few mutual friends. It wasn't the kind of event Emma typically felt like going to, but something inside her shifted. She felt an urge to reconnect, to step out of her shell, and to be part of the world again. It had been too long since she had let herself be around people who cared about her. And even if it felt uncomfortable at first, it would be a step toward healing. She replied, agreeing to come, even though the thought of it still made her a little nervous. But it was progress, small, but real. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that she was ready to start showing up for herself. She was ready to embrace the world, not as the person she had been before, but as the person she was becoming, stronger, more patient, and open to new possibilities. After getting ready, Emma grabbed her coat and headed out for the day. The streets were bustling with people, the sound of footsteps and conversation filling the air. It felt different now. Where before, the noise had overwhelmed her. Today, it felt like a part of life she could be a part of. She didn't feel so detached anymore. As she walked through the city, her steps felt lighter. She noticed the small things, the leaves that had started to turn yellow in the park, the way the sunlight flickered off the glass of the nearby buildings, and the hum of conversation as people passed her by. She had been so focused on her own struggles for so long that she had missed these moments. But now, she saw them. She saw the beauty in the everyday. The gathering that evening was small, just a few people, sitting around talking, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. Sarah greeted Emma at the door with a warm hug, and Emma immediately felt welcomed. It wasn't the same as it had been before, when she felt like she was just going through the motions, trying to keep up appearances. No. This time, she was fully present. She engaged in conversations, listened to stories, and shared her own thoughts. She wasn't hiding anymore. She was simply being herself. No pretenses, no walls. At one point, Sarah pulled her aside, her eyes filled with curiosity. "I'm really glad to see you here, Emma. You've seemed so distant lately." Is everything okay? Emma hesitated for just a moment, but then she found herself answering honestly. I've been going through a lot, but I'm starting to feel better now. I'm learning that it's okay to take things one step at a time. Sarah smiled warmly and nodded. I'm really proud of you. It's not easy, but you're doing the right thing. Just keep going at your own pace. Her words were simple, but they resonated with Emma. She didn't need to rush. She didn't need to pretend everything was fine. She just needed to be herself, take it one day at a time, and remember that small steps could lead to big changes. That night, after the gathering had ended and Emma was on her way home, she felt different. She felt lighter, not because everything in her life had suddenly fallen into place, but because she had taken another small step toward healing. She had shown up, engaged, and allowed herself to be vulnerable, and it felt good. It felt like she was moving forward, even if it was just by inches. As she sat on the subway ride home, Emma thought about the journey she had been on. It hadn't been easy, and she knew it wouldn't always be smooth. There would still be hard days, moments of doubt, and times when she felt like she was losing her grip. But what had changed was her perspective. She no longer felt like she was walking through life on autopilot, just going through the motions. She had reconnected with herself, with the people who cared about her, and with the world around her. The little girl on the bridge had been the spark that started it all. Her simple kindness had reminded Emma that there was always hope, that tomorrow was always a new day, and that she didn't have to do everything at once. She could take small steps, find joy in the little things, and rebuild her life one moment at a time. When Emma returned home that night, she sat down at her small kitchen table, a soft smile on her face. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like it was full of possibility. She didn't have to have all the answers today, and that was okay. She was learning to be patient with herself, to give herself permission to heal, and to move forward at her own pace.